Hello everyone, welcome back to my First Start School YouTube channel. In the last lesson, we have finished the home page of our task management application. So in this video, we continue working on the task detail page. The link for the first part of this project will put on the description below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, sum up my content, open the notification so you won't miss out the latest Flutter tutorial on the state management, the complex UI, as well as the backend servers. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. Before we actually implement the detail page, so first I'm going to show you how you can dynamically render this task list. So let's find our task module in this generate tasks. So I just copy those 3 tasks and I will paste after the third task and save. And you will see now we have 6 tasks rendered on our task list, right? And we can scroll down, and we have one more add card. And here, so you can implement your custom backend and replace this generate tasks method with your backend API, so you can dynamically render the task and follow this tutorial and implement this detail page. Then you can make your own task management application. Okay, let's undo the tasks and save again. We will start from this point. So first I'm going to find this task card, trying to implement the navigator. So I'm going to find it. I think it's inside this tasks.dart file, which is this build task method. I'm going to wrap this container with a gesture detector. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it with the gesture detector, and we're going to implement its own tab method. As you see, we actually pass the context, so we can use the navigator of context and push our detail page into the raw stack. So going to find our detail folder, and we're going to create a detail.dart file and also create a folder called widgets. Inside this detail.dart, we're going to create stateless widget, and I just call it detail page. Remove the constructor, also import the library, and here I'm going to replace the container with our scaffold widget and use this body attribute, and inside this body I just random return a center widget using this child, have a text widget. I just call it detail page, then save it and back to our task. Also, I think I may need the task object, so I'm going to pass it and implement this constructor by parsing this task object. Then I import the library. So in our build task method, on tab, I'm going to use the navigator out context and push. Inside this push, we're going to pass our context and return to I'm going to use the material page route. Inside this builder, I'm going to pass the context, return our detail page. I'm going to import a library, so it should be detail page, and I'm going to import a library. in here I'm going to pass the task. So let's save, and then we are able to navigate to the detail page. So let's try. When I click this task, I'll be able to see this detail page. Okay, we can start from this point. I'm going to create this app bar. In here, I'm going to use a Sliver App Bar. So I'm going to consider using the Sliver, and I close this task.dar. And inside our detail.dar, I'm going to first change the entire scaffold background to black. So change the background color to black. Let's save. And then we have the app bar, right? And because I'm using the Sliver App Bar, I'm going to replace this center widget with our custom scroll view. So inside our custom scroll view, we have slivers. Inside this sliver, I'm going to create a method which is called build app bar, and I'm going to pass the context. The reason I pass the context because we have this button, go back button. So when I click this go back button, I will be able to pop up my route stack and navigate back to my previous page. So I'm going to pass the context here. Then I'm going to implement this method. It will return the widget. And here I will receive, should be widget. Here I'm going to receive the build context. And inside this build app bar, I'm going to return a Sliver app bar. Inside this Sliver app bar, first we're going to define it is height. So I'm going to set the expanded height to 90, and also the background color should also be black. Set to colors black. Then for the leading, which is this go back button, I'm going to use leading. I'm going to use icon button. In this icon button, we have two required. So first one is this on pressed, and I'm going to use the navigator push. Here we could use navigator of context dot pop, and we will pop the stack. Then we can able to go back to our previous page, and then we have this icon attribute which is required, and here I'm going to use iOS arrows back iOS icon. Also change the size of the icon to a 20. So let's save. We are able to see our go back button here, and we click it. We are able to back to our previous page. Okay. After that, we're going to implement this one. This should be inside the action. In the action, I'm going to play icon as well. I'm using icons more vert. Then change the size. 40 is enough. So let's save. So the last part is the middle one. Here I'm going to use flexible space. Inside this flexible space, I'm going to use a flexible space bar. Inside this flexible space bar, we have this title attribute. In this title, I'm going to use the colon widget. So this is our first colon, and this detail will be our second colon. So we have the children attribute. So for our first children should be a text, which is came from because we can access to the task object, so we can access to task.title, right? So here I'm going to use task title and tasks for it is style. I'm going to use text style, and inside this text style I'm going to change it is font weight to bold, and then giving a little bit space, which is the size box for a little height set to 5, and another text. So for this text we're going to use the task object again. So we have a task dot left tasks for today, and also change its style using a text style. Change its font size to 12, and also change the color. Here I'm going to use a gray color and 700. Okay, let's see. Going to save it. I didn't show here because we didn't set this alignment, so I'm going to change its alignment. So for the main axis alignment, I'm going to set to the end, and also for the cross alignment, I'm going to set to the start. And we save again. Now we'll be able to see it, and because now we don't have an element after this sliver bar, so we cannot scroll it. But you see we have the title coming up, and also this description text. So I think we finished our Sliver App Bar, and next we're going to finish this picker date. For this date picker, I'm going to place it inside another widget which is called Sliver to Box Adapter, and I'm going to find our custom scroll view. Under this build app bar, I'm going to use another widget called Sliver to a box adapter. Remember, everything inside these slivers should be using the sliver widget. So we're going to use this sliver to a box adapter. You cannot use something like container, colon, something. You must use to the widget related to sliver. So in here, inside this sliver to box adapter, we can create our container because we have a rounded corner, right? So we're going to set the border radius. So we have a decoration. We use box decoration. Inside this box decoration, we change the color to white. After that, we going to set our border radius. We use border radius circular. I think we just use the only property because we only set the top left and top right. So we're going to use radius dot circular set to 30. Same as for the top to right. Change this attribute to top right. After that, we're going to implement a child inside this container. Here I'm going to use a colon widget because this should be our first colon, and this title should be our second colon. So after that, I'm going to implement a sliver list to dynamic render those time slot. So for our first column, I'm going to name it like a date picker. Then I'm going to implement this date picker. Also, we're going to set its alignment to star, right? So we're going to set a cross alignment to star. Then we're going to create another file. I just call it date picker.dar. And we can start to implement this date picker. If you're going to implement the real calendar, here I will recommend a package called table calendar. And inside this table calendar, you can access to this method which is called onDaySelect. So when you select, you will receive a real like a day object, which is daytime, and you can depend on your backend logic, you can just change the day and show different tasks within that day. So this is a package I highly recommend. But here, so since this is just the only UI tutorial, and I'm going to implement it by myself. So let's go to create a stateful widget in this time. So I'm going to create a stateful widget because I want to change different day. So I'm going to recall the state of the index. So I'm going to call it date picker. So for the date picker, I'm going to remove constructor for now. I think we're going to declare two lists. So first list, just the week list. And inside this week list, we have a Sunday to Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and also declare another list. I just call it day list. So for the Sunday would be 24, and for the Monday would be 25, and 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. Right, let's check. Yes, from 24 to 30. And after that, we're going to declare our select index. So here I'm going to declare a variable called selected, and by default I set to 4 because you see here the index start from 0. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the 28 will be index 4. So I'm going to render using a list view to render those objects. For this inside this container, I'm going to render a list view. So first I'm going to give the height for this container. I think 100 is enough. And then for the padding, I'm going to use edge inset.symmetric, so vertical to 20. Then implement the declaration using the box declaration. Going to give the border radius. I use border radius dot only, and only change the top left and top right. Set to 30 because we have this rounded corner, and you will notice we already changed here, right? For the outside container we change the border radius, but for the inner container we need to change it as well. So we're going to change this day picker. Otherwise, you cannot achieve the same like style. Okay, so let's duplicate and change the top left to top right. And for it is child, I'm going to use a last view. So here I'm going to use last view dot separated, and then I'm going to implement those required attribute. So for the item count, so we can just return the week list dot length. Since those two lists have the same length, either one is okay in this case. So for it is icon item builder, and I'm going to receive the context and index, and I will return. First, we need to check if it is equal to the index, because I'm going to show different shape, right? Also, I forgot to set this scroll direction to horizontal. Otherwise, the default list view will list vertically. So I'm going to set to horizontal. For this item builder, I'm going to return first is the gesture detector. The reason I use the gesture detector because I'm going to change the state, right? So here I'm going to inside this on tab method, on tab, I'm going to change its state. So I'm using this set state. I'm going to change the state. Right, we have a select index will equal to the index. Okay, then we implement it is child. For it is child, we're going to use a container widget, because we're going to custom it, right? We have a colon. So for the child, I'm going to use the colon widget. So first column will be our week, and the second column will be our date. So I'm going to use the column widget, right? And inside this column widget, we have a children attribute. So for our first children, we'll be using this week list, and we can using the index to access each element. Then we're going to style it a little bit. We're using the text style, and we change the color, but it depends, right? It depends on the color currently select index. We're going to make it darker. So I'm going to check the selected equals index. If equals, I'm going to use the black color. Otherwise, I just use a gray color. Okay, and then I'm going to have a size box to separate a little bit. Here, just use 5 is enough. So after that, I'm going to render another column, so which is in our second text. And also, I can just use the index to access each element. So for index, we can access to each day. We're going to style it a little bit using text style. So for the text style, I'm going to change the font size to 16, and also font weight to bold. Last is the color. We're going to check. So I think we can just copy this line. I'll probably will do the same logic. We're going to check if the index is equal to the currently select index. I'm going to change the color, and then for it is separator, I'm going to I think we can return the size box in this time. So we can set the weight to just 5. Also, and I think we still need to implement the decoration for this container. We have a little bit a round shape. So find this container. I'm going to implement this decoration property, and we use box decoration. Inside this box decoration, we're going to implement it is border radius and color. So for border radius, we can just use border radius dot circular and set to 20. For it is color, we're going to check the index. So basically it's the same. So we check the index, select it if it equals index. If it equals, I'm going to render a very light gray color. Colors gray dot with capacity. I'm going to set to very light, 0.1. Otherwise, I just return a none. Okay, I think this works. So I just save. And then we back to our detail.dar. Going to import the file we just wrote and then hit save. Okay, you actually see we have a list show up, but we forgot to set margin and padding for this list view. So we're going to file it and back to our date picker, and we're going to set our padding for this container. I'm going to file it. So for the padding, I use edge inset.or and I set to a 10. So for the margin, I'm going to just set the horizontal margin. I use edge inset.symmetric for the horizontal. Just set to 4 and hit save. Okay, now it looks similar like this prototype, and we can change the date, right? Same as this prototype. Okay, next we're going to implement this task title. Okay, back to Visual Studio Code. We're going to create another file. I call it task title.dar. And I'm going to create a stateless widget. But first, I think we need to import it. And okay, let's create it first. So I just call it task title and remove this constructor and import the library material.dar, and here I just return very simple text. I just call it task title and save it. I'm going to import it. So under this date picker, I'm going to import our task title, right? So we hit save, you're able to see the task title. And back to our task title.dar. Here, I'm going to use a row widget. This would be our first row, and this one will be our second row. So I just replace this text widget with our row widget. But we need to give this container a little bit padding. So I use this edge inset.or set to 15. For the children, you see those two items. We're going to use the space between. So it is main axis alignment to space between, separate those two items. So for our first item would be a text widget, should be just tasks. For the second widget, I think it's a container. Inside a container is another row widget. We have a text as the first row, icon as the second row. So inside this container, we have another row. I implemented children. So For the first row would be just a text. It's called timeline. For the second one, should be an icon. I just use icon start keyboard, roll down, outline it. Okay, so let's save. Yeah, and then we style it a little bit. So for these tasks, I'm going to set it style using text style. For the text style, change its font size to 22. Font weight I change to bold. Let's save. And then for this timeline, first we're going to give this container a padding. So set edge inset.org, just 10. And then we're going to give the decoration. Here I use box decoration. Change the color using colors gray dot with capacity. Gray with capacity set to 0.1, very light gray. And also the border radius using the border radius dot circular set to 20. So let's save. You'll see we have this rounded background with very light gray. And then for the text, I'm going to change its color, implement its style using this text style, change its color to colors gray, change to 700. And then for this font weight, I'm going to set to bold and hit save. Now it looks much better. So next we're going to implement this task detail. But before we implement it, as I mentioned in our last video, I'm going to create another attribute inside this task model. So I'm going to create an attribute. I just call it description. So it should be a list of map. So inside the map, I'm going to, the key is the string. So, and the value should be a dynamic, and it also is a nullable. I just call it a description. Okay, and then I'm going to place it under this done description. So for here, I just only implement one task. So for example, I just implement this personal task. I filled out its description. So after this done, I'm going to create a list of map object. So for the map object, we're going to use some field. So the first field will be the title of the task. So it should be title. So for our first title should be go for a walk with dog, right? And also we have the time. I think the time should be our first. So time should be 9 AM. After the time and title, we have a slot, time slot. So it should be between 9 to 10 AM, right? As you see here, between 9 and 10. After that, we have a color. So for this background color, and also for this timeline teal. So for the timeline teal, the color should be red dark. Should be timeline color. So the timeline, I'm going to use this timeline tail package. We can use this package to implement those timeline tail. So back to Visual Studio, going to finish this map object. So for it is a background color, I just use the red light. The background will be a light red. So this is for our first task, and we can just copy it and paste it for our second task. I'm going to change the time to 10. For the title, I'm going to change it to short or dribble. The time should be between 10 to the 12, right? So the color should be blue dark, and the background should be blue light. So this is our second task. And as you see, the second task, the slot is between 10 to 12. So we still have the time tail, but we don't have this detailed information. So we're going to copy our second task. We change this time to 11 and remove the title, right? And also remove this slot. But we keep this time tail color, which is this dark blue. This is our third task. So for the fourth task, and just have the time, so it should be 12 a.m. Also, we don't have the title and the slot. Going to have a color, so which is a great color with capacity. I set to 0.3. And for our fifth task, and I'm going to change it to 1 p.m. So for the 1 p.m., I'm going to have a title co-equal with client. And for the slot, it will be 1 to 2 p.m. And the teal color should be yellow dark for the background. Just yellow light. Okay, and then we can copy this grid twice. Okay, so change the 1 to 2. Change these 2 to 3. Or should be PN. It should be PN as well. Okay, so I think we finished the prepare. Then we can using the sliver list to dynamic render those task detail. Let's back to our detail.dar, and we're going to find our sliver to box adapter, and we're going to implement our sliver list after the sliver to box adapter. So I think first we need to grab the detail task. So we're going to create a detail list, and we're just using task description. We'll get a list of map, right? So we're going to use this list. So under this sliver to box adapter, we're going to check if this detail list if equals none, right? Because this should be is nullable, right? Or we're going to save it. So because this is nullable, we're going to check if it is none or not. If it's not none, we're going to render a sliver list. Otherwise, we're just using a sliver field remaining, and we put some task, right? So I'm going to use task widget. I just show no task today. Otherwise, I use another widget, which is sliver list. Okay, should be sliver list. Okay, and we wrap these text widget with the center widget, and also for these I'm going to wrap with the container because I want to change the color. So in this container we can change its color, which change to white color. Okay, and also for this text I'm going to change its style using the text style. Change its color to a little bit gray colors, gray, and also change the font size to 18. So for the sliver list, we're going to implement its delegate, which is a required attribute. Here we're going to use a sliver child build delegate. Right, inside this still child build delegate, we will receive the build context and also the index. Here I'm not going to use the build context, so I can make it underscore, which means I didn't use that parameter. Here I only use the index because I'm going to pass this detail list. Going to call it detail list, right? We can use the index to access to the element, right? This way. I'm going to create another, I think it's called timeline widget. So this widget we will create. So under this folder, I just call it task timeline.dar. So we're going to create this widget, and it's a stateless widget, which is called task timeline. I'll remove the constructor. Also, we need to import a library here because we pass the map object, right? You see we pass this map object. So in here, we're going to receive this map object. So we're going to define this map, which is the string as the key and dynamic as its value. Dynamic, I just call it detail. I'm going to implement its constructor, so which is this timeline list.detail. Should be detail. And here just replace with a placeholder, and here we can just import it. Also we need to implement this, I think it's called item count inside this. Where is it? So it should be child count, just this list length. Okay, so I think that's for our detail page. So you see, so let's back to, in this work we don't have any description, so when we open it we will see this no task today, right? And you can scroll up, you will see this header. When you scroll, this title will come small. Okay, so this is for the work and also the health, because they don't have any task. But for this personal, we don't see this sliver field remaining, right? Because we have task. We actually pass the list of map object. So this detail list is a list of map object, and we use index to access each map object and pass into this task timeline. So in this timeline we have this object. So we're going to dynamic render it. Let's open a prototype. We're going to use a route, right? So this is our row, first row and the second row. So inside this row, we're going to create another method which is called build timeline, which return this time tail. The second one is just this car. Okay, so let's back to Visual Studio Code and emulator for this container. First change its color, right? Color should be use colors.y, so we can save. Now we're able to see we have a different 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Because we defined a 7 map object, so we will see the 7 detail task. So going to make some padding using edge inset.symmetric for horizontal, set to 15. Let's save, and then let's see. So we're going to use a road widget, and we have it is children attribute. So we're going to write our method which is called build timeline. Alright, so I'm going to implement this method. It will return a widget, but you notice we have a different color for this timeline tail. So we're going to pass the color in this case. So for color, because we can access to this detail. So inside this detail, we have this time tail color, remember? So let's back to our task module. You see we have this time tail. So every map object have this time tail, which is required, you see. So we always can render this timeline tail. So back to our timeline star. Sorry, this one should be task. Okay, let's refactor. Should be task. Save again. And inside this build timeline, and I think I'm going to, let's see, we're going to use the library. So first we need to import it. So for this timeline tail, click this installing tab. I'm going to copy it and paste under this dot border. So let's save. And also we need to copy this import and find our timeline. We paste on top of our file. So inside this build timeline, we're going to first return a container. So we use container to give the height and weight. So I'm going to return a container. Inside this container, we can specify the height and width. So for height, I just set to 80. For the width, I just set 20, right? And for its child, I'm using this timeline tail library. And in the library, we have this alignment. So alignment, we're using timeline manual because I want to manual set it is. So for it is line XY is 0 is first, and I set to true. If you set is first to true, and you will show something like this. Let's see. Where is it? Okay. If you set it first to true, you will show something like this. And then you set this line XY to 0, so this small dot will move to the top. So Let's continue. It's first set to true, and also we implement its line indicator style. So we're using indicator style. But inside this indicator style, we have indicator x, y, and we set to 0. And also the weight set to 15. And indicate color, going to container, another container, implement this decoration using box decoration. Inside the box decoration, change the color to white because we have a little white dot inside. So going to change to colors.y. Also for its shape, change to box shape circle. Box shape circle. Also for the border, using this border.or, set width to 5, and also color. Here I just use the color we passed. Okay, and also we need to implement the after line style. We're using this line style, and you set it is thickness to 2, and also the color, which the color we passed. Let's save, and we can open our emulator. And now you see we implement this kind of shape, which is very similar like this. And then we're going to implement this time and also the car. So for time, and I think I could use the expanded widget. So going to find, and after this build timeline, I'm going to use this expanded widget. So inside this expanded, we have a child, which is another row. The reason I use the row because I want to use this space between. I want to separate this time and also this car. And we can use a cross axis alignment set to start. So for this row and main axis alignment, set to space between. And also for the cross axis alignment, set to start. Okay, so this should be cross alignment. Okay, for it is trial. So first trial will be just a text widget, and we can use because we have this detail map, we can access to it is time, right? So let's back to our task module. We can access to this time in here, something like this. Okay, let's save. So next we're going to implement this card. So we're going to create another method. I just call it build card. Right, so I will place above this build timeline widget, build card, and you see the card we're using the background color and title and this slot. So we're going to use those attributes. So for the color should be background color, also the string title, the string slot. Right, and here I'm going to pass those 3, and we can use the detail dot background color, also detail title and detail slot. but some of those didn't have those attributes, so we're going to check. And because you see we have these, we make it empty, so we are going to check if it is empty. So before this build card, we're going to use detail and title dot is not empty. If it is not empty, we're going to render the card. Otherwise, I'm going to return something else. So let's see. I'm going to return still this method, build card, but for the color, I just use colors.y, and those make it empty. Okay, so you won't see anything because the card is the white, and also we don't have any title, any slot. You'll be totally white. Okay, so we can continue implement this build card. So for the build card, first we're going to set it is container. We will return the container. We're going to set it is wet. I'm going to use just set to 250 and implement this decoration because we have a little round corner on the top, the right, bottom right and bottom left. Here we're using decoration, box decoration. Under this decoration, we have the color, which is this background color, and also border radius. Using border radius, only, and we have a top right, set to radius dot circular, set to 10, and we can just copy and paste. This time should be bottom left, this one should be bottom right. Okay, and then for it is trial, we're going to use a column widget, right? This will be our first column, and this should be our second column. But meanwhile, we also need to give some padding. We use edge inset.or, set to 15, and also the margin, going to give a little bit margin. So using edge inset.or, set 5 is enough. And then for it is trial, I'm going to use this column. You see we have this crossy alignment, so we need to set to start crossy alignment to start. And for its children, for the first children, should be a text widget, and the text can from here. For our second text, it should be here, slot, right? Okay, and also give a little bit space using this box. So set height to 10, and we can save it. Now we'll be able to see those, right? But we give some style for those title. So for title, I'm using style, so which is text style. For the text style, change font weight to bold. Save, and also for this slot, I need to change the color. So for its style, text style, change the color to gray. Okay, that's save. Okay, now it looks much better. Okay, and we can scroll down. Alright, that's pretty good, huh? Okay, that's for our personal tasks. And if you go back, check the work, we don't have any task today. because in here in our task module we didn't implement any description inside this task, so you could implement your own and change it a little bit. Yeah, we don't have a task for the healthy as well. Okay, I think that's all for this task management application. And this one will be a little bit complex than the app we made before, but I highly recommend you follow this entire Flutter UI tutorial to enhance your knowledge to build very complex Flutter UI. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, sum up my content, because it really took me a lot of time and effort to make this kind of video, especially for those beginners. Also, I put my Patreon on the description below, so you can support me at my Patreon. Okay, thanks for watching. I will see you in next video.